Let's go back to Miatta Fahnbulleh from the New Economics Foundation. Hopefully a slightly stronger line there, Miatta. You were saying, that actually the Bank of England are doing everything, but there's not much they can do. I mean, do you think something that Ian King was mentioning a short time ago, that we might see negative interest rates here, or not likely?
Well, I think it's an option, but in truth, it's going to have very little impact on the real economy because when interest rates are low, yes, you can shift them by, a few factor points. You could go into negative rates, but they're unlikely to stimulate and boost the economy in the way that we all hope they can. So it then takes you onto fiscal policy, which is the remit of the government, which is the remit of the Chancellor, and we need big fiscal stimulus. And I think, to be fair to the Chancellor, both in the budget and then in the measures that were announced earlier this week, we're seeing them doing a lot to try and shore up the economy and big interventions and big support for businesses. But the missing piece is support for families that are going to be massively hit. The combination of social distancing, self-isolation, families that now have to work from home with their kids because the schools are closed. This is going to have an absolutely catastrophic impact on some families' incomes. And the government is going to have to intervene. It's going to have to act in order to try and intervene to subsidize wages, to increase benefit payments, to increase sick pay, just in order to be able to support families. And by doing that, it shores up the economy.
I mean, have you looked at the figures that might entail? We saw, obviously, you alluded to it, the Chancellor pumping 350 billion odd into the economy the other day. How much more are we talking about to fill some of the gaps that you're highlighting there?
Well, if they wanted to provide a comprehensive package to families, and so, if you look at across to what the Danish government is doing, where essentially it's saying that it will subsidize 75% of wages up to a threshold of about $3,000. So if we were to do something comparable here, which we believe we ought to be doing, in order to both give businesses the confidence not to lay their workers off, but also to provide that income protection that we're going to have to provide for families, depending on how widespread it is in the economy, you're looking at something between 50 billion to 150 billion. So these are big numbers. It is a big intervention without a doubt. What we can't predict is how many people are going to need to use that support in order to shore up social security. So, we think that we need to treble statutory sick pay and extend it to the 2 million workers that are on low pay that don't access it, as well as the self-employed. And we also need to increase universal credit, JSA, job seekers allowance, by about 3 as well. Something like that, again, is taking us into the hundreds of billions. So these are big numbers, the sorts of numbers that we would normally bulk at. But this is the sort of game that we're now in. Big fiscal interventions for the government are required.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens in the coming days. They said they'll do everything it takes. Miatta, thanks for taking the time to speak.